Hello, everyone. Kill Bethelite here, and Happy New Year. It is 2022. Jehovah's Witnesses have been saying that the end of the world is around the corner since we'd have to go back to 1975, since that's when one of the times they predicted the end of the world. So before I was born, Jehovah's Witnesses have been saying that the end of the world, or what they would call Armageddon, was near, and by near, in descriptive terms, they would literally say around the corner. They would literally tell people that it was so close, there was no need to pursue family in this system. You could just wait and cross on over into the new system and have a family then. So it's not like they, by saying it's near, was referring to the concept that it's near as far as God is concerned, because to God a day is 1,000 years. They never were under that impression. They never taught that. Jehovah's Witnesses were not saying the end of the world is around the corner in God time. No, they were saying it's around the corner in our human concept of time. And in our human concept of time, that was false. It is 2022. Take the year 2000, when we thought the end of the world would be coming any second now, and add 22 at the back of it. This is starting to get to the point where Jehovah's Witnesses and all this, we're in the last part of the last part of the last part of the final part of the final part of the conclusion of the finale of the last part of the days. This is blatantly false. It's not just false, it is blatantly false, because they have been saying things like this so far back that it goes beyond some of our lifetimes. People have lived their entire lives and died thinking the end of the world was around the corner. It wasn't around the corner. It wasn't around the corner. If you have got kids and these kids are about to have kids of their own, and they were telling you the end of the world was around the corner when you were in middle school, then they lied. Then that's false. What they were teaching was false. Most of what Jehovah's Witnesses teach has been false. It's 2022. Let's go ahead and call a spade, and that virtually everything Jehovah's Witnesses have taught, including the whole it's near, it's almost here, end of the world teaching, has been false. The correct pronunciation of the Tetragrammaton is not Jehovah. God's name, the pronunciation, is not Jehovah. They had to eventually, to a certain extent, admit this. The whole 607 BCE prediction, that was false. I'm not sure if they've gone ahead and admitted that. The whole generation teaching was false. This generation will by no means pass away. That whole thing. They were saying the generation of 1914 would not pass away. That's been false. Everything that they teach, for crying out loud, for the most part, has been proven false. Now, most everything they teach is false, but I'm talking about the stuff that has been proven false. It is such a large portion of their teachings that's been proven false that we have got to come to grips with the fact that in 2022, if you are a Jehovah's Witness, we have got to come to grips with the fact that there is something wrong upstairs. It's okay to come to this understanding. There are people who are born with handicaps. There are people that are born with visible mental handicaps. There are people that are born with Down syndrome. And these people, because it's visible, they can't make excuses for it or pretend it isn't there. They have to come to grips with it and start dealing with it as such. Jehovah's Witnesses, there's something wrong upstairs. It's just not physically visible as far as their appearance is concerned. But in 2022, if you are a Jehovah's Witness, there's something wrong upstairs, and it's okay to address it, just like it's okay to address every other physical handicap or mental handicap that exists. Right? This isn't the forbidden topic to discuss that some of us have family members and they are not all there upstairs. Whether it is the result of something Watchtower has done to their mind, or whether it is something that has been true since before they even joined Watchtower, we are still dealing with the fact that in 2022, it is so blatantly obvious that Watchtower is false, that if you are a Jehovah's Witness in 2022, something is not right. Let me preference that with, I'm not talking about the people that know it is false and the reason that they are in the cult is because of fear that their relatives, maybe their own husband or wife, will divorce them, will shun them, will try to take the children away from them, will do all kinds of insane things. I'm not talking about the people who are in it just to protect themselves from what these crazy cult people will do to them if they try to leave. I'm not talking about them. And of course, I'm not talking about the children who are not even of age to be making adult decisions yet as to whether or not their religion is true or false. I'm talking about the adults that in 2022, they truly believe the end of the world had been around the corner for 100 years. Let's go ahead and get the cognitive dissonance concept out of the way. So some people, in trying to find a way to excuse or to find a reasonable explanation for their loved one's family member's spouse to be a member of the Jehovah's Witness cult still in 2022. In efforts to find some way of explaining it or excusing it, some people will say that Jehovah's Witnesses have cognitive dissonance. I disagree. I think it is a fact that cognitive dissonance does not explain how a person can still be a Jehovah's Witness, still in this doomsday cult where doomsday was supposed to have been soon and never came, but they're still in it. Cognitive dissonance does not explain it, because cognitive dissonance typically, from the definition of the term, and then also I've even looked up videos of people trying to explain the term, which is just as a theory. Cognitive dissonance, this is just a theory. And the people that have explained it and the things that I have looked up, cognitive dissonance is generally dealing with inconsistent thoughts. A person's mind not grasping or struggling with inconsistent thoughts. And also a person's mind not wanting, or a person not wanting to accept new concepts and ideas. So let's take, for example, smoking. A person can have two concepts in their mind. One is smoking is bad, and the other is I smoke. So how do we explain a person's actions? Why is it that they smoke when they have these two concepts in their head, which are inconsistent? A, I take part in smoking, and B, smoking is bad. Two true concepts. Both of those concepts are true. Well, cognitive dissonance. That's a theory that explains it. One of the reasons why this example doesn't work with Jehovah's Witnesses, to explain away why they are still in that cult, is because number one, we're dealing with blatant falsehoods, right? Jehovah's Witnesses aren't struggling with two true concepts, right? We're dealing with something that is blatantly, obviously false. When 1975 came and went, and the end of the world did not come, this was not cognitive dissonance. They were flat out wrong. This was flat out false. This is not something that Jehovah's Witnesses struggle with. They are aware. This was wrong. This was false. See, we're missing the two true concepts that a person struggles with. There was nothing to struggle with. That was false. They were wrong. Let's move forward. Because there's some people that were they were kids then, and that may not have been something that they even been aware of. Okay, so the generation of 1914 not passing away teaching. This is not something that is cognitive dissonance. This is not something that they struggle with two true statements. The generation of 1914 that will not pass away, it passed away. That was also false. There's nothing to struggle with there. Jehovah's Witnesses pretty much will admit it was false. Right? So cognitive dissonance does not explain away a person believing that a religion is true while at the exact same time admitting to the fact that this same religion has been teaching primarily falsehoods. Do Jehovah's Witnesses believe that the teachings are that bad? Is a question. Yes, they do, because there have been Jehovah's Witnesses caught on video. This can't be denied. It's been caught on video where a Jehovah's Witness will be presented with information from their own literature. And the Jehovah's Witness will say, well, wait a minute, that's older literature, meaning they are 100% aware that their teachings are so bad that if they read older literature, it is highly likely to be false. So they will flat out state, well, no, that's old literature. That's probably wrong. We get so much stuff wrong. We just flat out, if it's older, it's probably not only wrong, but been proven wrong. So let's not even go there. This is not a struggle. This is not cognitive dissonance. They are aware it's false, right? This is not a thought that is a struggle. Two true thoughts that a brain is having problems coming to grips with. Most of the falsehoods, the false teachings of the Jehovah's Witness cult, the Jehovah's Witness member will admit to in an honest discussion. They're not struggling with it. They're not juggling anything. They know it's false, right? We can just go through a whole bevy of false teachings, and this is not too inconsistent. There's nothing inconsistent, right? Jehovah's Witnesses are pretty consistently false, not inconsistent. They're consistent with false teachings. So cognitive dissonance, it doesn't cover a person having a concept in their mind that's false and they know it's false and still follow the source of that false information anyway. There's nothing to struggle with there, right? With Jehovah's Witnesses, the concept also with cognitive dissonance is accepting new ideas. There are people who will be stuck in an old thought because they don't want to accept new ideas. Well, this does not explain Jehovah's Witnesses, because the false teachings of Watchtower, this isn't a new idea. This is something that they've been aware of. This is something that they have been, this is not something new you're bringing to them. If you go up to a Jehovah's Witness and tell them that the teaching of the generation of 1914 not passing away before the end of the world was false, you have not brought them anything new. You haven't brought them anything that they don't already know and admit to. So the concept that cognitive dissonance is dealing with two true thoughts that a person is struggling with, they're just inconsistent with each other, is not true of Jehovah's Witnesses. They're dealing with blatant falsehoods, blatant, obvious doctrinal flops, complete errors, right? That they're not struggling trying to say that they were true. They know they were false. And then the idea that they don't want new ideas. The concept that these things were false aren't new. None of this stuff is new. Jehovah's Witnesses have been aware that these things have been false, and they just keep following the people that told them this false information anyway. Cognitive dissonance doesn't explain Jehovah's Witnesses, right? What I say is we are dealing with something that we don't even have a theory that explains it outside of stupidity, number one, and or they're just slow. There are people who are open to suggestion, or if you suggest something, they're more than likely going to believe it, no matter how ridiculous it sounds. There are people like that. There are people who are adults who, if you tell them something that's blatantly false, but you present it to them as true, for a while they'll believe it. They may continue to believe it. There are children that you can tell them something that's blatantly false, and they'll flat out say, "No, that's not true." Right? This is almost a mental disability that some people have, where they are unable to detect deception. And this doesn't even explain away Jehovah's Witnesses, because we're no longer dealing with deception. Once something is false, the person admits it's false. It's not deception. They know it's false now. Right? If I tell a person that if you give me $10 today, next week when I get paid, I'll give you $20. Well, when next week comes around, I get paid and I don't give them $20, they know I lied to them. Even if they were gullible to believe me in the beginning, they know I lied to them when I don't pay them back, and I never pay them back. Right? So, again, this is not something that Jehovah's Witnesses are struggling with as far as deception. They're no longer deceived. I never paid them back. There's nothing deceptive anymore. The deception is over with. I already deceived them. Now, if that person continues to loan me money after that, there's something wrong. There's something else going on. And that's what I'm saying about Jehovah's Witnesses. They're not deceived. There ain't a single one of them that's still deceived about 1975. There ain't a single one of them that's still deceived about the generation 1914. They all admit it was false. The deception with regards to that is over. They know they were lied to as far as that's concerned. So the concept that they're deceived about what? They admit that a large part of their older literature is not true. They're not deceived. They know this. They're aware that they're a part of a religion that is connected to a lot of false teachings. And the way that they deal with it is shunning. It's a threat. If you bring up the fact, it's not that they deny it or they struggle with it. If you bring up the fact that all these things are false in discussion, and you openly display the willingness to leave the cult, well, we'll take your family from you. They're not denying anything. They're just using that as a threat, an actual threat to keep a person from speaking the truth. This is what we're dealing with. We're dealing with people who are blatantly hiding from what they don't like. So a person, and this is where I think most Jehovah's Witnesses are, talking about adults, and I'm not talking about the people that know it is a false cult and stay in because of that threat of shunning, disfellowshipping, destroying their whole family. Right? I'm talking about the people who are in it. They are aware that it's false. They just don't want to hear it. In 2022, I'm going to go ahead and make this statement, and you guys can comment down below and refute if you would like. In 2022, there is no Jehovah's Witness that is not aware by now that Watchtower has made false teachings. There's no Jehovah's Witness that's adult Jehovah's Witness that is a member right now that is not aware that if they go through the literature, their own literature, some of that is false. None of them are deceived as far as this. None of them are in cognitive dissonance as far as this. They know it as a fact. Watchtower has been involved with false teachings. They are aware of it. But in 2022, they just don't want to hear it. They would rather stay in a false religion and use shunning as a way to threaten anybody for calling them on it. We're not dealing with people who are deceived. Deceived how? They admit a lot of that stuff is false. Deceived how? Cognitive dissonance how? They're not struggling with the concept. They just don't want to hear it. If you bring it up to them, and this has happened to me. If you bring this stuff up to them, they will just hang up the phone. They don't believe that what you're telling them is false. They just don't want to hear it. Well, the problem is that what you don't want to hear is trumped by the actions of the cult. So if a person's family's destroyed, marriages are destroyed, family relationships are destroyed, people depressed, people committing suicide, people being molested, because these cult members would rather just close their eyes to an obvious problem rather than face it. Rather than face that brother or sister so-and-so is a pedophile, we don't want to hear it. So we'll just pretend it's not true and just let them do whatever with kids. You come to a point where what's going on is too serious for us to care. You don't want to hear it. I don't know. It's 2022. People have been molested as a result of Jehovah's Witnesses ducking what they just don't want to hear. People's families have been completely destroyed. People have had relatives die, and their family who are Jehovah's Witnesses not even tell them that they were sick or that they were ever in the hospital, or sometimes not even tell them that they even died, because they just don't want to hear or deal with this person who's not a Jehovah's Witness. We're dealing with stuff that it's just too serious. That's too serious for us to prioritize what you don't want to hear over the fact that there have been people who have died, people who have relatives who have died, and their Jehovah's Witness family didn't even tell them. That's too bad. I mean, you've gone beyond what we can hide because we want to be nice and not tell you what you want to hear. So if in 2022, a person still being a believing Jehovah's Witness, not one that's just there because they're afraid of the shunning, but a believing Jehovah's Witness, that's stupid. What's been going on is too serious for me to care. You don't want to hear it. It's stupid. That family member, person, whoever is involved with something that's just flat out stupid at this point. And they're causing too much destruction amongst families and amongst children, and they're destroying too many lives for us to just be quiet about it because y'all don't want to hear it. So 2022, Jehovah's Witnesses are stupid at this point. Comment down below. Text, we'll discuss it. The number to text, 937-789-4029. Walk Hill Bethelite signing out.